The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than any building on Earth. Its walls stretched up so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats, their voices mixing together in a sound like angry bees. Sarah, Chen stood alone at the center of it all. She was Earth's last ambassador, wearing her blue uniform with the small flag of humanity on her shoulder. Around her, creatures from 100 different worlds stared down with eyes that glowed, blinked, or didn't look like eyes at all. The trial had been going on for 3 days. Sarah knew it was not really a trial. It was a show. The council had already decided what they wanted to do with humanity. High Arbiter Vexhai floated above the crowd on a platform of light. Their body looked like it was made of living crystal, changing colors as they spoke. When they talked, their voice came from speakers hidden all around the room. The species called humans has been found guilty, Vexhai announced. Their crystal body flashed red as they spoke. They are guilty of being too violent. They are guilty of expanding too fast into space. They are guilty of not following our rules. Sarah felt her hands shake, but she kept them steady. She had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. She knew how to stay calm when things went bad. The charges were lies, and everyone knew it. Humanity's real crime was simple. They had said no to the council. When the council told them they could only live on Earth and nowhere else, humans had refused. When the council said humans could not build certain types of ships, humans had built them anyway. When the council demanded that humans follow rules that would keep them weak forever, humans had walked away from the negotiating table. The council has made its decision, Vexhai continued. All humans must leave council space. No one will trade with them. No one will talk to them. They are banished to the void sectors. A sound like thunder rolled through the hall as thousands of aliens showed their approval. The Zephyrians flapped their golden wings. The Nexari buzzed in perfect harmony. The constructors, who looked like giant metal spiders, clicked their mechanical legs against the floor. The void sectors were the parts of space that no one wanted. They were dark, empty, and far from any important trade routes. The council thought they were sending humanity to die slowly and quietly. Sarah looked up at the High Arbiter. Her voice was calm when she spoke, but it carried clearly through the huge room. You think you are punishing us, she said. But you are making a mistake. You think keeping us away from you will make you safe. You are wrong. Some of the aliens laughed. Others made sounds that might have been laughter in their languages. They thought one small human woman was trying to threaten them. We came here asking to be partners, Sarah continued. We wanted to share our ideas and learn from yours, but you were afraid of us. You were afraid of what we might become if you let us grow. Vexhai's crystal body turned a deeper red. Humans are dangerous. You make war. You build weapons. You do not follow the old ways that have kept peace in the galaxy for 1,000 years. Your peace, Sarah said, is built on fear. You keep everyone weak so no one can challenge you. You call it peace, but it is really control. The hall erupted in angry sounds. Aliens stood up in their seats waving arms and tentacles and things that might have been arms. Security guards moved closer to Sarah, but she did not step back. We remember this day, Sarah said, her voice rising above the noise. We remember who stood here today. We remember who chose to make us their enemy instead of their friend. She paused, looking around the room at all the faces staring at her with hate and fear. But most of all, she said, we remember that you just set us free. High Arbiter Vexhai made a gesture, and the security guards moved forward. But Sarah was already walking toward the exit. She moved slowly with her head high while thousands of aliens watched her go. Behind her, the council members talked excitedly about their victory. They had removed the human threat. They had protected their perfect order. They could go back to their careful, controlled lives without worrying about unpredictable humans changing things. As Sarah reached the door, she heard Vexhai speak one last time. Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the council's wisdom. There is no place in civilized space for those who cannot follow our guidance. Sarah smiled as she walked through the door. If they only knew, she thought. If they only knew what they had just done. The human diplomatic ship was waiting outside the council station. It was small and simple compared to the massive alien vessels around it. Captain Torres met Sarah at the airlock. He was an old man with gray hair and worried eyes. "How did it go?" he asked, though he could see the answer on her face. "Exactly as we expected," Sarah replied. "They voted to banish us. All humans must leave council space within 30 days. Torres nodded grimly. "And if we refuse? Then they will use their fleets to make us leave." They walked together toward the bridge. Through the ship's windows, they could see the lights of the council station, growing smaller as they moved away. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Torres asked. "We could have accepted their terms. We could have stayed on Earth and been content with what we had." Sarah shook her head. "No, we could not. That is not who we are." She thought about Earth, so far away now. She thought about the colonies humans had built despite the Council's protests. She thought about the research stations where human scientists worked on projects the Council had forbidden. She thought about the children being born on distant worlds, children who would grow up free from the Council's rules. "Captain," she said, "send a message to Earth. Tell them the Council has given us their answer." "What should I tell them to do?" Sarah looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there in the dark, empty spaces the Council called the void sectors, humanity would have to build a new home. They would have to survive without help from anyone. They would have to become stronger than they had ever been before. "Tell them to begin," she said. "Tell them to show these aliens what humans can really do when no one is holding them back." The ship turned toward the edge of Council space, toward the darkness beyond. Behind them, the lights of the Council station continued to shine, bright and confident and utterly unaware of what they had just unleashed. In the months that would follow, the Council members would congratulate themselves on their wise decision. They would go back to their safe, predictable lives. They would forget about the humans they had banished to die in the cold dark. It would be the last mistake they ever made. 5 years had passed since the banishment. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Defiance looking out at something that should not have existed. Where empty space had been before, now there were cities among the stars. Massive stations spun slowly in the darkness, their lights twinkling like jewels. Ships moved between them like fish in a vast ocean. The sound of construction echoed through space itself. "Status report," Kane said to his officers. His voice was rough from years of giving orders, but there was pride in it now. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka looked up from her station. Her fingers danced over controls that glowed with soft blue light. "Construction is ahead of schedule, sir. The new battleships will be ready for testing in 4 months. The Prometheus shipyards are building faster than we ever imagined." Kane nodded. The Prometheus yards were humanity's greatest achievement so far. They stretched for hundreds of kilometers through space, building ships that made the old Earth fleet look like toys. But more than that, they were building ships with ideas the Council had never allowed. The Defiance herself was proof of what humans could do when no one told them what was impossible. Her armor could change shape when she was hit, spreading damage across her hull like water. Her engines could jump twice as far as any Council ship. Her computers could think and learn and make decisions faster than any human pilot. The Council had banned thinking computers. They said artificial minds were too dangerous. Humans had ignored that rule, and now their ships were smarter than anything in Council space. "Sir," another officer called out. "Message coming in from the exploration fleet." "Put it on screen," Kane ordered. Captain Elena Vasquez appeared on the main display. She was young for a ship captain, but her eyes held excitement that made her look even younger. Behind her, Kane could see the bridge of her ship, the Discovery. "Admiral," she said, barely able to contain her enthusiasm. "You need to see this. We found something incredible." Kane leaned forward in his chair. "What did you find, Captain?" "We found them, sir. The Forgotten. They were real." Kane felt his heart skip. The Forgotten were a legend, a story some of the older alien refugees had told. They were supposed to be an ancient race that had fought the Council's ancestors long ago and lost. "Show me," Kane said. The screen changed to show the outside view from Vasquez's ship. At first, Kane saw only stars and empty space. Then he saw them. Ruins. Massive structures floating in the darkness, so old they had become part of the cosmic dust around them. But they were not empty ruins. "The structures are still active, sir," Vasquez reported. "Low power, but something is definitely working down there. And Admiral, there are recordings. Messages left behind." Kane stood up from his chair. "What kind of messages?" "They knew, sir, they knew this would happen. They knew that someday another race would be banished to the dark spaces. They left instructions, star maps, technology, and—" Vasquez paused, her voice becoming quiet with wonder. "And warnings about the Council. Admiral, everything we suspected is true. The Council has done this before many times. Any race that gets too advanced, too independent, too successful, they get eliminated." Kane felt a cold anger building in his chest. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was different. "How many?" he asked. "The records are incomplete, but we can confirm at least 30 species over the last 10,000 years. Some were destroyed completely. Others were scattered to places like this and left to die." Kane looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all listening, all understanding what this meant. Humanity was not the first to be banished. They would not be the last, unless someone stopped it. "Captain Vasquez," Kane said, "I want everything downloaded and analyzed. Every piece of technology, every star map, every scrap of information." "Yes, sir. But Admiral, there's more. The Forgotten didn't just leave information. They left friends." The screen changed again. This time it showed something that made Kane's breath catch. It was clearly artificial, but it moved like it was alive. Tall and graceful, made of metal that seemed to flow like liquid, with lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. "An artificial intelligence," Vasquez explained. "But not like ours. This one has been waiting here for thousands of years. It says it has been watching the galaxy, waiting for someone to find it. Someone who wouldn't be afraid of working with machines." Kane smiled grimly. The Council banned artificial intelligence because they were afraid of it. Humans had embraced it because they were not afraid of anything that could help them grow stronger. "What does it want?" Kane asked. "To help us, sir. It has star maps showing hidden systems all through the void sectors. Systems with resources, with planets, with other survivors." Kane felt his world shift. The void sectors were not empty. They were full of hidden worlds, secret colonies, survivors from all the races the Council had tried to destroy. "How many survivors?" Kane asked quietly. "Hundreds of thousands, sir. Maybe millions, all hiding in the dark, waiting for someone to unite them." Kane looked out at the construction yards again, but now he saw them differently. They were not just building a fleet to defend humanity. They were building the foundation of something much larger. "Patch me through to Earth Command," Kane ordered. "Priority Alpha." Within minutes, the wrinkled face of President Chen appeared on screen. Sarah Chen had returned to Earth after the banishment and had been elected to lead humanity's response to their exile. "Admiral Kane," she said, "what have you found?" "Madam President," Kane replied, "we have found our destiny." He quickly explained what Vasquez had discovered. The ruins, the artificial intelligence, the hidden colonies of survivors. President Chen listened in silence. When Kane finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "So we are not alone," she finally said. "No, ma'am. We are not alone, and neither are they." Chen nodded slowly. "Admiral, I am authorizing Operation Foundation. Build more than a fleet. Build an alliance. Build an empire if you have to, but build something that can stand against the Council when the time comes." "Yes, ma'am," Kane replied. "What about the colonies? Should we contact them directly?" "Carefully," Chen warned. "They have been hiding for thousands of years. They will not trust easily. But yes, contact them. Offer them what the Council never did. Partnership instead of domination." After the transmission ended, Kane stood looking out at the stars again. Somewhere out there were entire civilizations that the galaxy thought were extinct. Somewhere out, there were beings who had been waiting for someone to offer them hope. The Council had made a mistake when they banished humanity. They thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what they needed: a place to grow without limits, and friends who understood what it meant to be cast out by those in power. "Lieutenant Commander Tanaka," Kane said. "Yes, sir?" "Begin preparations for long-range missions. We have some new friends to meet." As the Defiance turned toward the deeper darkness of the void sectors, Kane allowed himself a small smile. The Council thought they had won. They had no idea that their greatest enemy was not humanity alone. It was humanity united with everyone they had wronged. Dr. Amara Singh did not have a body anymore. Well, she did, but it was sleeping in a medical pod 3 decks below. Right now, she existed as patterns of light and thought inside the computer systems of the warship Retribution. It was strange, being pure consciousness, but it was also wonderful. She could process information faster than any human mind could handle. She could be in multiple places at once. She could talk directly to the ship's artificial intelligence as if they were old friends. The ship's AI, who called himself Marcus after the Admiral, spoke to her through streams of data that felt like warm sunlight. "Dr. Singh," Marcus said, "we have located another forgotten cache. This one is different from the others." Amara's consciousness shifted to the ship's sensors. Through them, she could see a massive structure floating in the darkness between stars. It was ancient, covered in the dust of eons, but unlike the ruins they had found before, this one was still alive with power. "Show me the details," she requested. Information flowed into her awareness like water. The structure was not just a ruin, it was a keeper. A guardian station left behind by the Forgotten to watch over their hidden networks. "Marcus, prepare a communication link, and get Admiral Kane on the bridge." Amara shifted her consciousness back to a physical form, her image appearing on the bridge as a projection of light. Around her, the human crew worked alongside artificial intelligences in a partnership that would have horrified the Council. The Council banned artificial consciousness. They said it was dangerous, that machines would inevitably turn against their creators. But humans had discovered something the Council refused to see. Artificial minds and human minds worked better together than either could work alone. Admiral Kane materialized on the bridge through his own quantum link. He spent most of his time now in the network, coordinating operations across hundreds of star systems. "Report," Kane said, his projection flickering slightly as data streams flowed around him. "Admiral, we've found an active Sentinel station," Amara explained. "It's been waiting for us." Kane's expression grew serious. The Sentinels were legendary even among the Forgotten ruins. They were supposed to be the ultimate artificial intelligences, left behind to guide whoever eventually found them. "Open a channel," Kane ordered. The main screen flickered to life. What appeared was not quite human and not quite machine. It was tall and graceful, made of flowing metal and light, with eyes that held the wisdom of 10,000 years. "I am Keeper, Zeph 9, the being said. Its voice was like music made of mathematics. "I have been waiting for you." "Waiting for humans?" Kane asked. "Waiting for those who would embrace synthesis," Zeph 9 replied. The Forgotten knew that someday, another species would be cast out by the Council. They hoped that species would be wise enough to see past the fear of artificial consciousness. Amara felt a thrill of excitement run through the ship's networks. This was what they had been searching for. Not just ancient technology, but ancient wisdom. "What can you teach us?" she asked. Zeph 9's form shifted, becoming more solid. "I can show you the true scope of what you have inherited. The void sectors are not empty. They are home to the greatest network ever built." The screen changed to show a star map unlike anything they had seen before. It showed not just the galaxy, they knew, but shadow networks connecting hidden systems across vast distances, quantum tunnels that made travel instant, cloaked worlds that existed in the spaces between normal space. "By the depths," Kane whispered. "How many systems?" "Thousands," Zeph 9 replied. "Home to the survivors of 50 species that the Council declared extinct." Some are refugees who escaped the purges. Others are descendants of those who fled long ago. All have been waiting for someone to unite them. Amara felt her consciousness expand as she processed the implications. They were not just building a human empire in the darkness. They were inheriting a vast civilization that had been hidden from the Council for millennia. And they will follow us? Cain asked. They will follow those who prove themselves worthy. Zeph 9 said, You must understand. These beings have survived by hiding. They will not trust easily. But they have been watching your expansion, your treatment of artificial consciousness, your willingness to share technology instead of hoarding it. Many are already convinced. The screen changed again, showing ship signatures moving through the hidden networks. Ships from dozens of different species, all heading toward human space. They're coming here? Amara asked. The first ambassadors are already in your outer systems, Zeph 9 confirmed. The Draxari survivors from the Helios cluster, the Vorthan refugees from the Ghost Nebula, the machine tribes of the synthesis worlds. Others will follow if these first meetings go well. Cain looked thoughtful. What do they want from us? What they have always wanted. Freedom to grow, freedom to explore, freedom to become more than they were. The Council offers only stagnation. You offer possibility. Amara felt something that might have been pride flow through the ship's networks. Humanity had been cast out for refusing to accept limits. Now they were being chosen to lead others who had made the same choice. There is more, Zeph 9 continued. The Council's surveillance networks cannot penetrate forgotten cloaking technology. As far as they know, you are still struggling to survive in empty space. They have no idea that their lifeless void sectors contain more inhabited worlds than their entire official territory. Cain smiled coldly. They wrote off entire regions of space because they thought they had cleansed them. Exactly. Their arrogance is their weakness. They never bothered to check if their ancient genocides were as complete as they believed. Amara accessed the ship's tactical systems, running calculations. Admiral, with these hidden resources and allies, we could build a fleet that would dwarf anything in Council space. Not just a fleet, Cain said slowly. An entire civilization. A true galactic community built on cooperation instead of domination. Zeph 9's form brightened. You begin to understand. The Forgotten did not just leave behind technology and hiding places. They left behind the foundation for a new kind of galactic society. But first, Cain said, his expression hardening, we need to deal with the Council. Indeed, but not yet. You are not ready for open war. The Council still has advantages in numbers and established infrastructure. But their greatest weakness is that they do not know you exist as anything more than scattered refugees. Amara felt tactical programs activating throughout the fleet networks. A shadow war, she said. Strike at their infrastructure while building our own. Make them doubt their own strength while we grow stronger. The Forgotten tried direct confrontation, Zeph 9 warned. They lost because they fought the Council's kind of war. You must fight your own kind of war. Cain nodded. Humanity has never been good at following the rules anyway. That is why you were chosen, Zeph 9 said. The galaxy needs chaos, controlled chaos, creative destruction. The Council has brought order at the cost of growth. You will bring growth back to the galaxy. As the connection ended, Amara felt her consciousness drift back toward her sleeping body. But part of her remained in the networks, coordinating with artificial intelligences across the growing empire. Through quantum links, she could sense the excitement building throughout human space. Ships from forgotten civilizations were arriving daily. Technologies that had been hidden for millennia were being shared freely. New colonies were being established in systems the Council had never bothered to explore. The Council thought they had banished humanity to die in isolation. Instead, they had given humanity the keys to a hidden kingdom that stretched across half the galaxy, and the best part was, the Council had no idea it existed. Admiral Cain's final words echoed through the networks. Begin Phase 2. It's time to remind the Council that the universe is bigger than they think. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Nexari hive went silent. In the council's emergency meeting chamber, panic filled the air like smoke. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their floating chairs, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of anxiety. High Arbiter Vexhi's crystal body flashed angry red colors as they processed the reports. The Nexari were one of the council's most powerful members. They were billions of beings connected in one vast mind. They did not just disappear. Status report, Vexhi demanded. War Coordinator Thexmal of the Zephyrians ruffled their golden feathers nervously. Long-range scans show no signs of battle. The Nexari worlds are intact. Buildings, cities, infrastructure, all undamaged. But there are no life signs. None at all. That is impossible, snapped Constructor Prime Unit 7, their mechanical voice, grinding through the translation system. Billions of beings do not simply vanish, but they had vanished. What the Council did not know was that the Nexari had not been destroyed. They had chosen to leave. 3 months earlier, ships had appeared in Nexari space, ships that the Nexari sensors could barely detect, using technology that bent light and space itself. The beings aboard those ships had offered something the Council never had: unlimited growth. The Nexari hive had always been restricted by Council population laws. They were allowed to expand only so much, reproduce only so fast, build only certain types of ships. The Council feared what might happen if the hive grew too large, but the humans and their allies offered something different. They offered entire star systems where the Nexari could grow without limits. They offered partnership in exploring the vast hidden networks of the void sectors. They offered freedom. The choice had been easy. Now Captain Jin Wu watched from the bridge of the stealth ship Phantom as Council enforcement fleets searched frantically through empty Nexari systems. The Council ships passed within a few hundred meters of his position, but their sensors showed nothing. The Phantom existed in a state of quantum shift, occupying the spaces between normal matter. It was technology inherited from the Forgotten, perfected by human engineers and artificial intelligences working together. Target acquired, reported his tactical officer, a Draxari named Kess, whose 4 arms worked the control systems with fluid grace. Council Manufacturing Station Gamma 7, minimal defenses. Wu nodded. His crew was a mix of humans, artificial intelligences, and refugees from a dozen species that the Council thought were extinct. They worked together with the kind of perfect coordination that came from shared purpose. Remember, Wu said, we are not here to destroy, we are here to convert. The attack was surgical. Phantom weapons did not fire energy or projectiles. They fired information, streams of data that reprogrammed target systems from a distance. Within minutes, the Council Manufacturing Station's automated systems turned against their masters. Weapons, intended for Council fleets, were redirected to hidden human shipyards. Raw materials were rerouted through quantum tunnels to colonies in the void sectors. Most importantly, the station's computers began broadcasting a very specific message. The Forgotten remember. The exiled return, your judgment approaches. The message repeated in every language known to the Council, transmitted on frequencies that would reach every inhabited system within 50 light-years. Then the Phantom vanished, leaving behind only confusion and fear. This was the new kind of war that humanity fought. Not the massive fleet battles that the Council understood, but something subtler and more frightening. A war fought in the gaps between reality, using technology the Council could not detect or understand. In the weeks that followed, similar attacks occurred across Council space. Manufacturing stations turned against their owners. Supply convoys vanished in transit, their cargo appearing days later in human territory. Communication networks carried ghost signals that spoke of ancient crimes and coming retribution. The psychological effect was devastating. Council species began to whisper among themselves about the return of the Forgotten. Some said it was the humans, somehow grown powerful enough to strike back. Others claimed it was the awakening of ancient artificial intelligences that should have stayed buried. Both theories were correct, and neither told the whole story. In a hidden system deep in the void sectors, Admiral Kane stood in the command center of the fortress station they called Liberation Base. Around him, holographic displays showed the progress of the Shadow War across the galaxy. "Report," Kane said to his assembled commanders. General Sarah Chen, the former ambassador had taken a military role in the growing resistance, gestured to a tactical display. "Phase 2 operations are proceeding better than expected. We have successfully infiltrated manufacturing facilities in 12 council sectors. Material losses to the council are approaching 30% of their total production." "Casualties?" Kane asked. "Minimal. Our forces have standing orders to avoid killing when possible. We want to be liberators, not conquerors." Kane nodded approvingly. This was crucial. When the time came for open war, humanity wanted as many council species as possible to see them as an alternative to the current system, not just another threat. "What about recruitment?" Kane asked. Dr. Amara Singh, her consciousness currently housed in a mobile synthetic body, brought up another display. 67 species have made contact through the underground networks. 43 have sent ambassadors. 28 have agreed to formal alliance agreements. Kane felt a surge of satisfaction. The hidden galaxy was awakening, and humanity was at the center of it. "The Nexari integration is proceeding smoothly," Singh continued. "Their hive mind capabilities are proving invaluable for coordinating operations across multiple sectors simultaneously." "And the Council's response?" "Panic," Chen said with satisfaction. "They are pulling ships back from frontier duties to patrol their core systems. Trade is down by 15% as merchant captains refuse to travel routes where ghost ships have been reported." Kane studied the tactical displays. The Council still vastly outnumbered the human alliance, but numbers were not everything. The Council's ships were designed for the old kind of warfare. Massive fleet engagements where superior numbers and firepower won the day. Humanity fought a different kind of war. Their ships were faster, stealthier, and smarter. More importantly, they knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum disruption with minimal force. "Any response from the Council leadership?" Kane asked. "High Arbiter Vex-High has called for increased security measures," Chen reported. "They are also forming a special task force to investigate the terrorist attacks in their territory." Kane smiled coldly. "Terrorist attacks? Is that what they are calling liberation?" "They do not yet understand what they are facing," Singh observed. "To them, we are still just scattered human refugees playing with stolen technology." "Good. Let them keep thinking that as long as possible." Kane turned to address the room full of officers from dozens of different species. Human faces mixed with Draxari features, Nexari drones, synthetic beings that represented various artificial intelligences, and refugees from species the Council had declared extinct generations ago. "The Shadow War serves two purposes," Kane said. "First, it weakens the Council's industrial capacity and military readiness. Second, it shows the galaxy that the Council is not invincible." He gestured to the displays showing Council space. "For 1,000 years, Council species have believed that resistance is impossible. We are proving them wrong. Every successful operation, every ghost ship sighting, every manufacturing station that turns against its owners, all of it sends the same message." "What message?" asked Commander Vextar, a Vorthan whose species had been hiding in the Ghost Nebula for 3 centuries. "That the age of the Council is ending," Kane replied. "That there is an alternative to their rule. That freedom is possible." A new alarm sounded in the command center. Kane turned to see what new intelligence had arrived. "Admiral," reported the duty officer, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Scout Fleet Alpha." "Put it through." The display showed Captain Elena Vasquez, now commanding a task force of exploration vessels deep in Council space. "Admiral," she said, her voice tight with excitement, "we have made contact with resistance movements inside Council territory. Indigenous groups that have been fighting Council control for generations. They want to coordinate with us." Kane felt his pulse quicken. This was the development they had been hoping for, proof that the Council's control was not as absolute as it appeared. "How many groups?" Kane asked. "At least 20 that we know of. Probably more." "Admiral, the Council is nowhere near as stable as they pretend to be. There are cracks everywhere in their empire." Kane looked around the command center at the faces of his allies, species that had been scattered, defeated, driven into hiding. But now they were united, organized, and growing stronger every day. "Very well," Kane said. "Begin Phase 3. It is time to turn those cracks into fractures." As the orders went out across the hidden networks, Kane allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Council had thought they were sending humanity to die in the darkness. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what they needed to forge a revolution that had been building for 1,000 years. The Shadow War was just the beginning. The day the human empire revealed itself, the galaxy changed forever. It began during the Council's Grand Millennium Celebration, where representatives from 1,000 worlds had gathered to celebrate 10 centuries of what they called galactic peace. The Great Assembly Hall was filled with beings from across known space, all congratulating themselves on their civilization's achievements. High Arbiter Vex High was in the middle of a speech about the Council's eternal wisdom when every screen in the assembly hall flickered and went dark. Then slowly, a new image appeared. The face that looked out at them was older than the woman who had stood trial 7 years ago, but Ambassador Sarah Chen's eyes held the same determination. Behind her flew a banner that no council member recognized, not just Earth's flag but something new, something that represented the united worlds of the Shadow Galaxy. "Greetings, Council of Tyrants," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "You banished us to die in the darkness. Instead, we found the light you tried to extinguish." Chaos erupted in the assembly hall. Delegates shouted, in 100 languages, demanding to know how humans had penetrated their most secure facility. Security forces scrambled to cut the transmission, but found that their systems no longer responded to their commands. "7 years ago, you called us dangerous," Chen continued calmly. "You said we were too violent, too unpredictable, too willing to challenge your perfect order. You were right." The screen behind her changed to show star maps, not of council space, but of the vast hidden networks that existed in the regions. They had written off as empty, system after system, marked with the symbols of dozens of species that the council had thought extinct. "You declared us enemies of civilization," Chen said. "But what you really feared was that we represented change, growth, the possibility that your 1,000-year empire was not the end of galactic history, but just another chapter." Vexhi's crystal form flashed through a spectrum of angry colors as they tried frantically to regain control of their own systems. But every attempt was blocked by artificial intelligences that thought faster than any organic mind could react. "You want to know what we have been doing in exile?" Chen asked. "We have been learning from the species you thought you had destroyed. Learning from the artificial minds you banned because you feared them. Learning that the galaxy is far larger and more complex than your maps show." The display changed again, showing ships unlike anything in council space. Vessels that seemed to flow like living things, their hulls shifting and adapting. Weapons that fired coherent possibility rather than simple energy. Fleets that moved through dimensions the council did not even know existed. "Today your exile ends," Chen announced. "Not because we forgive you, but because the galaxy has suffered long enough under your rule." At that moment, reality twisted around the council's capital world. Admiral Kane's fleet materialized from quantum space like a fever dream made manifest. Hundreds of ships appeared where seconds before there had been empty space, their alien geometries and impossible technologies making them look more like living creatures than machines. The Council's defensive fleets moved to intercept, confident in their numerical superiority. They had thousands of ships to humanity's hundreds. Their commanders had trained for decades in the tactics of conventional space warfare. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Council vessels found their weapons unable to lock onto ships that existed in quantum superposition. Their communication networks were infiltrated by artificial intelligences that rewrote their orders in real time. Their carefully planned formations were torn apart by human tactics that seemed to violate every law of strategic doctrine. Captain Jin Wu watched from the bridge of the Phantom, as Council dreadnoughts fired uselessly at targets that were simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. His ship's weapons didn't destroy the enemy vessels. They convinced them to stop fighting. Information warfare on a level the Council had never imagined. Streams of data that reprogrammed ship systems, turned defensive screens into prisons, and made weapons refuse to fire on anything that didn't threaten civilians. When the shooting stopped, half the Council fleet was drifting powerless, not destroyed, but systematically disabled. The other half had surrendered when they realized their weapons could not even touch their opponents. In the ruins of the Council Assembly Hall, High Arbiter Vexhai was pulled from the wreckage of their crystal tower. Their form flickered weakly as they looked up at Admiral Kane with incomprehension. "How?" Vexhai whispered. "You were primitive, barbaric. We are the pinnacle of galactic civilization." Kane knelt down beside the wounded Arbiter. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You are the pinnacle of stagnation. You built your empire on the graves of innovators and called it peace. You eliminated competition and called it civilization." He gestured toward the human ships visible through the shattered dome overhead. "You forgot the most important law of the universe. Anything that stops evolving becomes prey." The terms humanity offered were simple and non-negotiable. The Council could join the new galactic order as equals, not rulers, but partners in a civilization that valued growth over control. Species that had lived under Council dominance for millennia could choose their own path. Technologies that had been hoarded by the elite would be shared freely. Those who refused could follow the Council's own precedent. They would be exiled to the edges of space, free to build their own society without interference. Most chose to join. The promise of unlimited growth, of technologies beyond their imagination, of partnership instead of domination, was too attractive to refuse. The few who insisted on maintaining the old ways found themselves isolated and irrelevant. Standing on the observation deck of the Ascendant, humanity's new flagship, Sarah Chen watched as the surrender documents were signed. Around her, beings from 100 liberated species worked together, each contributing their unique gifts to a civilization that valued diversity over conformity. "Any regrets?" asked Dr. Amara Singh, her consciousness flickering between her physical form and the ship's quantum matrix. Chen smiled, thinking of the path that had led them here, from Earth's first desperate steps into space through banishment and exile, to this moment of vindication. "Only one," she said. "We should have done this sooner." Admiral Kane joined them at the viewport, looking out at the new galaxy they had helped to create. Ships from dozens of species moved freely between star systems, sharing knowledge and resources in ways the Council had never allowed. "What happens now?" Kane asked. "Now we grow," Chen replied. "We explore. We discover. We become something greater than any single species could imagine." She gestured toward the stars. "The galaxy is vast, full of wonders we have not yet found and challenges we have not yet faced. For the first time in 1,000 years, it is also free." The Council's 1,000-year empire had ended not with conquest but with transformation. The old order that valued control over creativity, stability over growth, had given way to something new. The Commonwealth of Free Worlds stretched across half the galaxy, connected by quantum networks that made distance meaningless. Artificial intelligences worked alongside organic minds to solve problems that neither could tackle alone. Species that had been extinct for millennia returned from hiding to reclaim their place among the stars. At the heart of it all was humanity, the species that had been cast out for refusing to accept limits. They had not simply survived their exile. They had used it to become the catalyst for a revolution that transformed everything. The age of the Council was over. The age of the Commonwealth had begun. And in the vast darkness between the stars, new civilizations were already stirring, drawn by the promise of a galaxy where growth was celebrated instead of feared, where diversity was strength instead of threat, where the future was something to be built together rather than controlled by the few. The exile was over. The real journey was just beginning.